Today's guest has recently made the transition from an admin role to a cloud engineer position. The two things I want you to listen out for are his experience with the bootcamp, whether positive, whether negative, and his advice for those who might be considering taking a bootcamp to break into the cloud. The second thing I want you to listen out for is really special. It's all about how he was able to leverage his current position in an admin capacity to a cloud engineer position in the same company. This is something that I believe more people need to look out for in how to actually transition within a company rather than, applying to a new company to become a cloud engineer. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. And if you want some more free content on actionable steps you can take to get into the cloud, just go to thecloudcareermentor.com and just sign up to our free newsletter. And yeah, let's jump right into it. Hello, Peter. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited for you to share your journey. I think you're relatively new in the cloud industry, so I think you still have like really fresh perspective of sort of getting into the industry, which I think our listeners would find very interesting. So I guess we could just jump right in, tell me all about how you got into the cloud, what you were doing before, what the process was, and yeah, what's your story?
Yeah, so I was still within like DWP, like within the civil service, but I was in like an operational role, so like administering claims and paying them and stuff like that. And then after that, I was leading a team doing the exact thing. But tech was always that thing that I wanted to get into. But it's just whenever I was looking at jobs, you needed 5 years experience and stuff like that, or you need a degree, and it seemed impossible to get into, to be honest. And what it was, that the reason why sort of adverts for AWS were coming up on my phone and stuff like that is I kept on having conversations with my wife about wanting to get into tech and stuff, and I think Facebook sort of advert,
Your phone was listening.
Yeah, and then a sort of bootcamp sort of provider for AWS courses pops up on my sort of suggested ads and stuff. So it's one sort of time that I didn't actually mind it. So then, yeah, I got in touch with them, and they sort of provided me with what they can offer and stuff like that. And obviously, because I was quite new to everything back then, I took every sort of word verbatim because they were offering sort of 60 grand jobs and stuff like that, things like that. But, looking back now, I could have taken it with a pinch of salt. But yeah, so that's how I sort of got into things. And then once I sort of completed a
Yeah, sorry, if I could just pause right there. If I could just pause right there, because I feel like that's a really important point to underscore. And that's why I try to get across, where it's, maybe can you share some of the messaging? And they were saying like, what did they say you could do and in what timeline?
So pretty much it was initially sold to me as classes kind of thing. Like there was nothing about exams, so it's just, oh, you come to our boot camp and that's it, like you're good to go. And then they always try and sort of tell you, oh, this, there may be hundreds of people that do these things, but because there's one person that lands like a 50k job or something, it's like that's their selling point.
That's the case study.
They were telling me, oh yeah, this one person that done the exact same course has now got a 60 grand job, and within X amount of weeks of completing it.
Wow.
It seems like the golden ticket kind of thing. And I remember when I was applying for jobs, it's like, well, I have to apply for solution architect jobs because that's the certificate kind of thing. No other roles are actually explained to you. Nothing other than the AWS technology is explained to you. So it's as though I've done the course, so I know everything. I'm going to be a master, which is far from the truth.
Yeah, I think this is one of the sort of messages I try to come across, because I've spoken to a couple of people who've done similar boot camps. And, the key message I want any of my listeners to know, if you're looking to get into AWS, is that being a solutions architect, you need 3 to 5 years actual real world experience. More realistic roles are cloud engineer roles or DevOps engineer roles. Those are the entry level kind of roles. And even those, I'd say you need a lot more than just AWS skills to get there. And what I would say is that don't expect, if you're in the UK, don't expect £60,000 starting salary. I mean, it's possible, but most times it's between sort of 35 to 45. That's what I've seen. Maybe some more, maybe less, depending on where you are. And in America, I'm sure it's like, I don't know, $60,000 to $70,000 or whatever. But no, thanks for sharing that. So, you did the bootcamp. Did you do any certifications as part of the bootcamp?
Yeah, so it was all the way through from cloud cloud practitioner to solutions architect professional. That's what was sort of covered. So you pay quite a big like fee for it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And one of their main selling points is you get unlimited resets and stuff like that. But obviously, you've paid for it, kind of thing. It's
It's
so
factored
yeah,
into the hefty
that's what was
price.
included. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And yeah, so where did you go from there? You did the certifications. What happens next?
So then, yeah, once that was done, obviously I thought I was good to go and started applying for roles. And it was just sort of, you can always tell by the email where it says, thank you for applying for this role, sort of thing, that you haven't got it. So after a few months of that, luckily I work in like a large organisation that has sort of cloud infrastructure within it anyway. And I'd say most places do these days anyway, even if you're working, at Tesco or something like that, or JD Sports, wherever you work, it's always worth sort of reaching out to the sort of digital department on LinkedIn. So I sort of reached out internally through like our teams kind of thing. Just reached out to the head of cloud. Just said I want to get some experience for my CV. I've sort of realised that certificates don't really cut it, and they laughed at me when they said, "What do you want to be?" And I said, "A solutions architect." They said, "You're not going to." They were like, "Look, with all the respect, you're not going to get there." So a few months passed. I sat an interview for like a junior engineer sort of thing, and luckily I got it. So that's how I sort of ended up where I am. It's more about who you're connecting with, to be honest.
And how long did it take from when you say you did the certification to when you got the role as a cloud engineer? How long did that take?
6 months.
6 months, yeah. And
Yeah.
I think that you're quite lucky in terms of the fact that, you're within a larger organization that
Yeah.
we're able to take you on. But I also think that's what that shows is really good initiative on your part, because, you notice that, okay, we have an AWS arm, because I think for junior people, it's probably easier to transition within your company already, because,
Yeah.
they can get references. They know who you are. It's just cleaner for everybody. So I'd encourage, if you're in a big company, unless you have some certifications or unless you've done some work with AWS, try reaching out to people, the cloud division in your company, and just start talking to them, see if there are any roles available. I usually tell people who were in your situation that, connect with people in the cloud team on LinkedIn, maybe tell them about your progress, show interest, and, that way you get on their radar. And so when the opportunity comes up, like it did for you, then, you'd be first in mind. But yeah, no, I think congrats on showing that initiative and getting in, because without that, it probably could have taken you like a year or two.
I know, and
Yeah,
one thing that I would always say as well is before I actually approached anyone, I asked my manager to do it, and every time I sort of asked for an update, it just fell on deaf doors. So like the one thing to sort of take away is like if you don't buy a ticket, you're not going to like even though they're directors or managers, whatever, like they're still human. Just give them a message, give them an email, whatever.
Yeah. And one thing about people in the cloud industry, I know from myself and the people I've worked here with, is we're always looking for talented people or people with initiative. And I think the sad thing about this whole bootcamp situation and the wider cloud training in general is that every job I've worked in, the number one thing on the manager's mind is we need more good people. We need talented people. But
Yeah.
there's a disparity between the people who are applying for the roles and the roles. And that's because a lot of these bootcamps and stuff, I don't think they really give people the right skills. They just focus on AWS. But what I say, you need Linux, you need some scripting, you need at least to understand CI/CD. There's so many, Terraform. These are the sort of things that just
Yeah.
help you stand out a little bit more than just, AWS certifications.
Yeah, exactly that.
So yeah, no, I think that's great. Thanks for sharing. So you've kind of shared how you got your first cloud job. How different was it, like when you started? Because you've been in it for I believe a couple of months now. How different is it from what you were expecting?
So obviously the only sort of experience I did have was like through courses and stuff. And the one good thing about doing courses is you like can sort of keep up in conversations. That's the
Yeah.
one good thing I would take away from doing course. But when it actually comes to like, okay, but this is, can you deliver this and stuff? And I'd still sit there today and think, how the hell am I good? Like it takes me like a while to sort of figure something out. Or like, if something keeps failing when I'm trying to sort of push it up into GitLab and stuff, that's not taught to you. like,
Mm.
and stuff like that. So it's very different. And everything that I know about my job now and like my proficiency in my job, I've learned sort of by doing.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I mentor a couple of people who are looking to get into the cloud, and sometimes they come to me frustrated. They're like, I've spent, like 4 hours on this. I'm like, welcome to the club. That's the price of
Mm.
entry. We all have to go through that. Like, we all have to.
Mm.
There's so many times when I spend hours looking at the script only to realize I forgot like a comma or something and nothing
Yeah,
works.
yeah,
So yeah, I think just having the ability to sit with a problem and focus on it for hours at a time is a skill in itself. And yeah, that's basically that's everyone. That's just how it is. And no one
yeah.
really tells you that. Like, so you feel like, oh, is there something wrong with me? Nah, that's just the
Yeah,
game.
to be honest, because I came from an operational background, if things weren't done correctly the first time or properly, it meant, it could mean someone's going without money or something like that, or,
Mm,
there's something's happening that shouldn't be. So when, like, I remember the first time I sort of pushed something up and it was like, oh, it's fouled. And honestly, like, my heart sort of sank and stuff. And
mm.
it's like I had a meltdown kind of thing. And it's not until, like, I've been there a while now and it's like, okay, it's fouled. But then when it fouls the next time, but it's something different, it means you've made progress and stuff like that. Like, it's
Yeah.
okay to foul.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I love when like I get an error and then I do something and then I get a different error because I know,
Yeah.
okay, I've solved the first error. So like you say, that's progress as well, which is always, which is always good news. So what tasks do you do on a day-to-day basis? Because again, I want people to have a good idea of what like a cloud engineer type of day looks like. You creating pipelines, are you writing scripts? What kind of things do you do?
Yeah, so a lot of mine is creating pipelines and looking after the sort of AWS organizations and like IAM and stuff like that, and
Mm.
administrating permission sets, creating permission sets, changing them, things like that. And yeah, so that's what obviously I can't exactly go into loads and loads of detail and stuff, but yeah, that's pretty much what I do. So yeah, it's 1% of it would actually be on the management console, to be honest.
And do you do a lot of, because I guess what people like to know is, because when you're learning, you're usually in the management console. Would you say you're using more infrastructure as code versus console? Like, how would you say the split is?
I'd say it's 95% code, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that's something like Terraform or CloudFormation. Do you
Yeah.
program in Python?
Yeah, so there's a few languages. Terraform is like
A
the
few
main one,
languages.
but yeah, there is Python as well. It sort of it depends on the task kind of thing. But yeah, there are like
Yeah.
multiple languages that you use.
The reason I ask is because one of the big questions I usually get is, do I need to know how to program to be a cloud engineer? And what I say to people is that for the most part, you could probably get away with understanding the basics. Like if you have the attitude to learn on the job.
Yeah,
And, depending on where you work, because different companies do things differently. Some companies, it's all just management console. There's no CI/CD. There's nothing fancy. Whereas others, they're more advanced. They have, all the CI/CD, the Terraform, AWS organizations. So if someone asks you the question, do I need to learn how to code to be successful? How would you answer that?
yeah, I'd say yes. Even if your company,
Yeah.
even if the company that you're working for doesn't use it, if you're then looking to progress into a wider organization or something, and you know everything, how to paint something, but you haven't got any paint with you, you're not going to be hired.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And even what I tell people is that you need to not be averse to learning how to code, because I think you can actually get away with not knowing how to code that much at the early stages. But then what you find out is that you hit a plateau where, you can't go beyond a certain point, because if you don't,
Yeah,
if you can't program, then automation is difficult. And if you can't automate, or if you don't know how to speak, programming talk, if you don't understand how the pieces fit together, you can't really talk to the developers. You can't really engage with them to create the infrastructure they need. And I
yeah,
remember early in my career, I knew a little bit of coding when I got my first job, but I didn't really use it that much. But then on the side, I was always creating projects with Python and Django. And I found that just elevated my understanding of how the application application interacted with the infrastructure? Because I think a lot of people forget that you're not just doing AWS in a vacuum. There's usually some sort of applications you're supporting or other things where you might not be the one creating the application, but you need to understand how it interacts with the database and how it interacts with the other AWS services you're provisioning.
Well, that's the thing, and most organisations, if it's large enough, would have like a sort of on-call schedule.
Mm.
Where you're going to be sort of, if you're on call and you're called out, you're going to be running off something that's just on a run book. So it may not be something on your team, but you're going to need to know the basics of how to get about it, things like that. And yeah, there's most organisations as well aren't just AWS. There's some are multi-cloud because it suits their needs. Like Azure has the Active Directory that you can use and stuff like that. And
Mm.
it's not just you just need to learn the management console. There's a lot.
Yeah, and just to clarify some industry jargon right there, Peter mentioned runbooks, and what runbooks are is just like a list of what to do in a certain situation. So step 1, step 2, step 3. So that's what a runbook is, just to clarify for some listeners.
Apologies,
No,
yeah.
thanks.
It's like a set of instructions.
That's understandable. What actions or attributes do you think have helped you the most in your career?
Just not being afraid to put myself out there. I think, not just having the attitude of the worst someone can say is no. And just, I think you've got to want it as well. Like, you can go on all these boot camps and stuff and be like, yeah, I'm doing it kind of thing, and I'm guaranteed it. But once you're done with it, like, you've still got to persevere. You can't just, like, you need to, there's a difference of going to school because you want to, or but because you're forced to, sort of thing.
I just want to underline that because I think that's so important, because I talk to so many people who want to get into the cloud. And I think a lot of people they love the idea of working in the cloud, but I don't think they quite have the stomach for the reality of it, because,
Yeah.
it's not easy. Like, you have to spend hours troubleshooting. You have to do challenging tasks. And I think I kind of blame like a lot of the boot camps and a lot of the marketing around it, because even AWS, they make it seem so easy. They make it seem so easy. Like, yeah, you could just swan into a 6-figure job. And that's one of the reasons I set up this podcast, is to actually talk to real people in the industry doing it, because the reality is quite different from the marketing, shall we say.
Yeah, it's that, and it's made out as though you can just sort of make this fantastic app on AWS within 5 minutes, and it's all perfect, and there's no code
Yeah.
behind it or anything, and it's like it's just so different, and yeah, like you just need to get used to getting things wrong, really. Like
Yeah. No,
the
I
easiest way
think
to learn is from your mistakes.
yeah, and the easiest way to learn is just doing projects, because I think a big thing people do is they just follow along with YouTube tutorials or whatever. And what you find is that if you have your own idea for a project and then you try to execute it, that's when, because it's easy to know what to do when someone's sort of giving you the instructions, but once it's something new, it's a bit of an unknown, then I think that's where the real learning is. And even a lot of the times with the people I mentor, I just give them a task. I'm like, do this, and then let me know how you get on, and then we could come back, because when you just have a video to follow, of course it seems easy. So no, I think that works. I think having the perseverance is very important. Also knowing that it's challenging, I think that puts a lot of pressure off, because you don't feel like, oh, is it me, am I not cut out for this? So I just want to reassure people that it's hard for everyone. I'm a senior solutions architect, been in the industry for 5+ years, and it's still hard, because the more senior you go, the bigger the challenges become. And now you're put in charge of big budgets where, depending on what decision you make, it could cost hundreds of thousands of pounds or make hundreds of thousands. So, that's even added pressure. So, it's for those, if you like a challenge, if you like figuring things out, cloud is for you. If you want an easy life, there's easier careers out there. There's easier careers out there. No, thanks a lot for sharing all these, all your experience. I think it's going to be really helpful. What do you enjoy the most, or rather, that's a bit of a leading question. What are your thoughts about a cloud career now that you've been in it for a couple of months? What are your thoughts on it, pros and cons?
It is a very rewarding career, and it's great seeing things like passing and working and passing all the tests and things like that. However, if you're working so far back in terms of like the 7 layers and things like that, and it's hard to sort of realize what you're actually doing. I don't know if that that makes sense, like how your job actually makes a difference, kind of thing. But when you sort of, when you sort of look at the bigger picture, you realise that actually, without sort of cloud infrastructure, I had it described to me as like we build the houses and then the development units paint them and decorate them and things like that, and so without one you can't do the other. So it is definitely like very rewarding, and no 2 days are the same. There's always something to think about, which is great. And I've become a lot more comfortable in my role where I would actually troubleshoot something rather than run into my little buddy straight away kind of thing, which I used to do as soon as there was a bit of red text or something. So it takes time.
Yeah, that's definitely a rite of passage in terms of getting that confidence to begin troubleshooting yourself, because the instinct is just to run to like a more senior member of the team. So yeah, that's really good insight. What do you think is the biggest misconception about getting your first job in the cloud or developing as a cloud engineer?
The more badges you have, the more sort of recruiters you'll have knocking on your door. I saw this analogy on LinkedIn where it was like, would you want a pilot that's flew a Boeing for 700 plus hours, or would you want a pilot that's flown all different types of planes for 5 hours each or something? And it's just specialising in one area is absolutely fine. Like if you're going for an actual proper interview, when because I'm not trying to sort of slate all recruiters and stuff, but recruiters aren't normally technical. They're being paid to hire someone for a role. If you've got an actual interview with like a hiring technical manager and stuff, they will want to know about your knowledge of a lot of different areas and not just how many badges you've got against your name on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think as someone who's hired people, like I don't really care about the badges that much, and I have a theory on certifications, and this is it. Like before you get a job, it's okay to get the cloud practitioner and it's okay to get the solutions architect. Nothing more. Focus more on the hands-on skill. Once you actually have a job and once you've done a year of experience, then I see you can start going for the other badges, because now you're getting the hands-on, on a daily basis at work. Now you can augment your knowledge. So technologies you might not work on a daily basis, you can use the certifications to learn more about them. And so I say after a year or two, get those certifications. By the time you get to the more senior level, then you're worrying about other things. You're worrying about how to write documentation, how to communicate with stakeholders. So I say, once you're a year, maybe 2 years in, then amass the certifications. And this is coming from someone who has 9 certifications. So, don't worry about the badges, make sure focus more on the hands-on, if you're looking to get a job. Projects wins 100% of the time.
Yeah, because interviewers always want to know about how you've done a certain thing, how you've handled situations.
Yeah, because that's the thing. They're hiring you to do something. They're hiring you to solve a problem. They're not hiring you for the certification. I think that's, I think we've had a really good conversation, and we're about to wrap up here. Before we go, are there any sort of final words of wisdom for someone? Maybe, think of yourself right before you sign up to that boot camp. What would you do different if you could go back and do it all again? How would you approach getting your first job differently?
If I rewind the clock completely, I would just go onto AWS Skill Builder, do the courses on there. There's a game that you can play on there actually, which is quite good, where you can build things and stuff like that as you go along. I wouldn't worry about getting with a boot camp and stuff. You gain nothing extra that you wouldn't get out of studying for yourself. There are so many good sort of little mentors on LinkedIn, YouTube and things like that will give you information. The only good thing about a boot camp is they will present it in a PowerPoint. That is it. So I wouldn't spend, apart from getting the certificates, I would not spend money learning because it is there for free. And I wouldn't worry, I wish I knew about the different jobs, because I didn't know what an engineer was and stuff like that. I was just told that a solution architect is a job. I just wish I knew things that I do then.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And especially when it comes to thousands of pounds, which is what I've heard from other people. Because, you know, I've taken paid courses before, you know, to learn like Python and to learn other things, but definitely not thousands of pounds. And I think maybe I'm going to have another episode where I talk about what to look for if you do need a bootcamp, because some people need that structure. There's certain things that make a good bootcamp from a bad bootcamp. For example, you know, if the focus, but then you might not even know till after you're in. So yeah, that's going to be a conversation for another time. But no, thanks, Peter, for coming on. Is there, if anyone wants to connect with you, you know, do you accept requests? Where would be the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, anybody that sort of requests to connect with me on LinkedIn, I follow and I sort of accept. Even the people that are offering me all the courses, I reply to saying hi, no thanks. So yeah, I'm sure you get them as well. All the different people saying we provide this and that. And so yeah, you know, just send me a message or whatever. It's absolutely fine.
Sounds good. All right, and I'll put your LinkedIn in the show notes, so yeah, people can reach out if they want to. But yeah, sure. Thanks for your time, Peter, and yeah, we'll catch up later.
Yeah, all right. Well, it's been lovely. So yeah, have a good evening.
You too. Make sure you give the video a like if you found it interesting. Why not try one of these videos? You could try that one or that one. I think this one's my favorite. No, this one. Watch this one. Just pick one of them. All right. See you later.